Chapter 3. Locker Oil Makes an Offer.
Brad drove back to the hospital in the Cadillac. His mother was on the third floor now in room 311.
You just missed her.
The hospice nurse?
Yes, how did you know?
Zebo said she stopped in while me and Ma were out looking for Elvis.
So you found him?
He's fine. I hope you don't mind, Ma. I took your car.
Of course I don't mind, honey. I can't drive it anymore. Do you think you could pick me up on Sunday morning for church?
Sure, Ma. What about you, Sibs? Are you sticking around?
I suppose I'll be spending the night, but I gotta leave first thing in the morning. Gotta work tomorrow.
The nurse came in to check vitals. Sybil gave Brad her "let's take a walk" look. They stepped outside.
I spoke with Will.
Will was 37, a corporate recruiter in Denver for marriage disaster number 2.
The attorney called him this afternoon. Will says Locker Oil's willing to settle for $1.25 million.
Brad smirked.
Well, sure they are. The jury said $8 million. They can stall it, Sibs, but they're going to have to pay. And they sure as heck can afford it, too.
I know, but Mama will be long gone before we see a penny of it.
You didn't tell Ma, did you?
Sybil glared.
Of course I didn't tell her, Brad.
You know they're just lowballing us to see how desperate we are and how cheap they can get off.
Well, it is a rather decent chunk of change if you ask me, Mr. Moneybags. Of course, Will doesn't think so, but you know how he is. Anyway, I'm gonna run over to the house and freshen up. You need me to pick up anything?
I'm good.
He wrapped his arms around her for a few seconds. Stiff as ever, she straightened her collar and left. Back in room 311, Elaine was sitting up in her bed watching the Andy Griffith Show.
Did your sister tell you what's irking her?
I heard something about her mother falling down and bashing her skull. They had to take her to the hospital in an ambulance.
Well, sure, hon, there is that. But something else is going on with her. And we all know how secretive your sister can be.
Maybe you should ask her, Ma.
Oh, I suppose you're right. But never mind that. Just tell me this. How is the love of my life?
I'm good. Just trying to get ready for tomorrow night. Finish up a couple new tunes I've been working on.
You'll get there, honey. I know you will. And I was just telling my Northside Gal how talented you are. You just missed her.
Zebo says she's quite the looker.
Oh, she's gorgeous, all right. And I invited her to come to church with us. I hope you don't mind. She's one of them gals that used to go but stopped, like your sister and your brother. I know it's not always what we want it to be, hon, but what is?
That's why I'd rather listen to music than a sermon any old time. Those great songs never lose their punch, not even after we're gone.
Oh, I know that's right, darling. I still like listening to Bobby Darin. You know him and Connie Francis wanted to get married, but her father said he'd kill Bobby if he ever touched his daughter again.
I saw Beyond the Sea last week.
Did you like it?
Not half as much as Allison did. It was just too weird about Bobby Darin's mother being his grandmother and his big sister being his real mom.
Oh, yeah, and here's me with a son born on my 43rd birthday, for goodness sake, and a daughter that's 18 years older than him. But don't you worry, Sybil is not your mother, 'cause I am. And let me tell you, it was the happiest thing ever, 'cause your daddy was the handsomest, most romantic, kindest, most decent man I ever met in my entire life. And you are just like him.
And he was 25 when you met?
24, darling. I'll never forget it. He sang at our church, and I bought one of his tapes, and I introduced him to Sybil and Will. I invited him for lunch, too, but he already had plans. Well, I find out a year later he's singing at another church, so I wrote him and said I'd be there. He was real glad to see me, even if I was 15 years older. But I was a young 40, and, well, once we started talking, well, it just took off from there. And I just knew that we were meant for each other. And he knew it too, right away. It didn't take but a couple of weeks till we were ready to tie the knot.
I miss him, Ma. Every day.
Well, he was pretty close to perfect, hon. And we never had a single argument. Not a
But
one.
Will never liked him, did he?
She shook her head and sighed.
Will always hoped I'd get back with Don, but Don wouldn't stop his drinking. And when he drank, he was mean. And Will thought it was all my fault. But it's a wonder I stuck with him as long as I did. I guess I'd convinced myself if I did the good little wifey thing that he'd just come around in time. And I'd already been through one divorce. And I was telling Gail about it the other day, my gal from hospice. She married a guy that was a youth minister. And when she was expecting their first child, a woman accused him of rape.
What?
The mother of one of the kids at church said that he sneaked up from behind and blindfolded her. Then he tied her up and he raped her. Gail said nobody believed the accuser and he got off. But then she found out he really did it. Well, she divorced him, only they had a daughter now, and he wouldn't leave her alone. So she left the state. Didn't tell no one where she was. She just plumb disappeared.
A tear ran down her cheek.
And meanwhile, he married someone else and became an evangelist. Started traveling all over the country. But then they charged him with rape again. And this time it stuck. 4 different women. He blindfolded them all. But then one of them recognized his voice. And they had his DNA.
That sounds like Law and Order SVU.
What's really sad, hun, is when she divorced him, her mother kept telling her over and over, go back to him. That must have really hurt.
She wiped her eyes with a hanky.
They didn't talk for years, her and her mom, even after the guy was sent to prison. But she is back now, 'cause her father ain't well.
That's quite a story, Ma.
He stayed until she was sound asleep.
Music sets you free.